This one's going to be nasty. It's called Threaten My Pregnant Wife Over Parking. Enjoy Your Misdemeanor, HOA Jerk, posted by PR Throwaway 83094. This was last year. I just sold my home in my HOA. About 5 years ago, I bought a 1,500 square foot townhome condo in an up-and-coming town, right in the downtown area. This is a valuable property, with home prices having increased 35% since I purchased. This was a wonderful area in walking distance of everything that I loved as a single bachelor. When I moved in, all my neighbors were wonderful. We all got along great, well, except for one person. She belonged to the HOA board, but was moving on because you can only serve 8 years. We'll call her Gimpy J. Gimpy J is a 65-plus-year-old widow whose husband died unexpectedly from a heart attack. She doesn't have much to do. She met a man online and moved on, and well, I was happy for her. Talking to my passive neighbors, I hear bits and pieces of why things are at the HOA because of Gimpy J and another woman who had to move because of age. On the board, the two of them pick on residents. They change the landscaping from mulch to pine needles. They stop upkeep on the pool deck because they hate kids. They reported one house for anything and everything because their kids were too loud. She picked on a woman with multiple sclerosis because Gimpy J was feeding feral cats and attracting raccoons and possums near our homes, and animal control was called. Residents did not like her. I got married and my wife has been living with me for 2 years now at this point. We are very happy. During this time, Gimpy J began spending more and more time with her new boyfriend. He lives about an hour away from our house in the country. She would initially spend the weekend and then a week there until she began living there all the time with very little time spent here. Maybe 15 minutes to 2 hours a month would be at our complex. Now, at our complex, there is only one rule on parking. Each resident is entitled to 2 spots close to their building, but not necessarily in front of your unit, and there is no limit to parking spots you may occupy. Close to it is the key word. We have new folks on the board who are all under 40 years of age, and the place is starting to get spruced up. We have some friends over regularly, and they park in front of our unit. Gimpy J had 2 hip replacements done, and we had not seen her in about 7 months. In our little area of the complex consists of 8 townhomes that face each other, 4 on one side and 4 on the other. There are 8 spots for 3 homes and a handicap spot for one of our neighbors. Gimpy J started coming back around in January for longer periods, a day on the weekend to go out downtown or to visit friends. She started complaining that we were in her spots. Again, there are no assigned spots. We were willing to move our friends' vehicles for her to another empty spot, that is, until she started occupying 2 spots at a time with her vehicle. This behavior continued as she would come in taking 2 spots anytime she was here. The rules in the master deed say that no vehicle can take more than 1 spot without written permission from the board of directors or the property management group, and cannot continue for more than 2 days without permission. This was to account for residents moving in and out. Suddenly, that spring, my wife had a medical issue and was hospitalized for 4 days and on disability for 8 weeks. My mom was the only family member on both sides that had the capability of coming down to where we lived to help us out. She drove down and we needed to occupy 3 spots. I promptly let our property management company know and the board of directors know what was happening, providing them with my mom's make, model, and plate number, and that she would be here 6 to 8 weeks, just in case anyone had an issue. Gimpy J's first time home in 6 weeks, we had a car in front of her house, but she had room for her vehicle. She marched over and banged, and I mean banged loud on that door, demanding we move the car, and tried to open my front door and walk in my home. Yes, she tried to enter my home. It shook my dog who peed herself, it was that loud, who in turn growled and chased her out. I promptly told her there was no assigned parking, and the rule is 1 car, 1 spot. We moved a car out of respect one last time and saw that she occupied 2 spots with it per usual. The next time it happened, 2 weeks later, we refused to move our vehicle. We also began taking pictures for our records and communicating with our HOA of Gimpy J's erratic behavior. She continued to arrive, bang on our door, scream at us for having a car parked in her spot. One time, banging on the door, she dented the frame with her keys. A few additional times when we were not home, she would come in and park, occupying 2 spots. I would take more pictures for my records in case something happened because of her erratic behavior. Finally, it happened. About this time last year, I was at the gym and I get a call from my mom and my wife, frantic that someone is going to tow my wife's car. I drive home as fast as I can, and it's Gimpy J's boyfriend's son and his girlfriend, whom we had never met. This jerk, who doesn't even live here and has no business here, is screaming at us and insulting my pregnant wife and mother. He shouts, "My mother-in-law pays X dollars a month for these spots. You jerks are breaking the rules. I'ma tow that there SUV." All while drinking beer. Now, we know he can't do anything except scream and try to intimidate us outside. He calls his mother-in-law, who is not married to his father, about the situation. Gimpy J drives an hour to our complex. When she gets here, she parks her car behind all 3 of ours and gets out, blocking us in. And I had had enough. I quickly snapped some pictures and I called the police. I will not feel unsafe or be harassed in my neighborhood by people who do not live there or are even just barely there. Gimpy J realizes I called the police and she moves her car. I print out all of my documentation, pictures, communication from the HOA, all of it. I shower quickly because I'm disgusting from the gym and throw on a nice polo shirt and shoes. Pregnant wife sits in her rocking chair and my mother sits calmly at the kitchen table. The police arrive and we can see them hollering, waving arms wildly and screaming. The police come to the door and we kindly open up. Gimpy J tries to walk in before I block her and ask her to leave my property and invite the police officers inside. We apologize that we even have to call them over something so petty, but our neighbor is acting crazy and her behavior has been escalating. We explain what's happening. We show them communication from the HOA, show them all the pictures. The officer quickly had enough of these white trash pieces of crap. He imposes a no trespass order on my porch and will not let her near my property. If she steps foot on our walkway, she is in violation of the order and she will be arrested. We watch him go back out and explain calmly to her, and she starts screaming along with her boyfriend's kid and his girlfriend. This goes on for a while, and the officer calls for backup and a second car arrives promptly. Gimpy J promptly declares it's her property too, she pays her fees, and that he can't do that because everything is community property outside of a home. She goes and marches up to my stoop and he arrests her, charges her with disorderly conduct and harassment. The police then tell Gimpy J's boyfriend's son to go home. He gets in his truck with his white trash girlfriend and they drive off. As soon as he hits the road outside of our complex, the second police officer pulls him over for a DUI. That's right, the drunk guy screaming at my wife and mother had been drinking the entire time and he was loaded. Police couldn't do anything in the complex, but could when he hit the main road. Both of them were hauled off to the jail and we stopped hearing from them about parking. 2 days later, Gimpy J and her boyfriend show up to the complex and they park her boyfriend's car in our lot and leave it parked in one spot to ensure that it's hers. Well, they drive off and we don't hear from them in a week and no one is home. Since Gimpy J's boyfriend does not live here and his car is abandoned, I called the HOA to report it. They came and towed his SUV. Gimpy J put her house on the market 8 weeks later. Screw HOAs. Wow, you do not mess with a husband who has a pregnant wife and a mother who's coming there to help them out. Here's the thing. I don't know how this Karen, Gimpy J, thought that she could get away with all of this stuff. Double parking, throwing out these because I pay this money crap. And then the police come, she doesn't back down. She digs in deeper in that ditch. And then finally she gets arrested. The boyfriend's car gets towed. Her son and girlfriend gets hauled off to jail. We're bordering on nuclear here. I want to know what you think if we are or not. But OP, you dropped the hammer and you did not even care, man. Way to go. Let me know what you think too. Karen at a water park. Again, posted by Arcane Kobold. Why are there so many? Anyway, I'm the same guy as the last water park Karen, and today was a doozy, so strap in. Alright, so this time I was on the play structure. The literal snarkiest kid I have ever dealt with showed up. She was in her early teens easily. She told her little brother, I'm assuming, to go down when he definitely wasn't clear to go. I had to yell to get his attention to tell him not to go. The girl then taps on my shoulder and goes, my grandma said not to yell at her kids. I stared at her, then I just said, hey, I'm sorry, but if I need to get someone's attention quickly and they aren't listening, I'm going to yell. She gave me a death stare and then jumped down the slide. When I didn't clear her, she nearly rammed into her brother. Ha, strike one. Next time she came up, she was about to go down early and I told her, if you go down, you're on strike two. She straight out turned to me and said, I don't care, and went down. Strike two. The next time, she just ran down the slide immediately and even had the audacity to stick her tongue out at me on the way down. Strike three. The next time she came up, I told her, not so happily, sorry, but you can't go down the slide anymore today. She pouted and said, my grandma says I can. I looked her in the eyes and I replied with, well, your grandma isn't a lifeguard. I am, and what I say goes. Again, I'm a little ticked at this point. She sticks her tongue out again and goes downstairs and talks to her grandma. May the fun begin. I watched this lady walk her way up the stairs. I'm super excited at this point. Why did you tell my baby she can't go down the slide? She can go down the slide. Let her go down the slide. She came out of the gates swinging. I was not prepared for that. I replied with a simple, she broke the rules 3 times, so she can't ride the slide anymore today. She yelled back, what did she do, huh? She didn't break any rules. Let her go down. I'm trying not to smile like a dummy this entire time. I'm sorry, ma'am, but as the lifeguard, I decide who goes down the slide, and she broke the rules. She went down the slide 3 times without my permission, endangering both herself and her brother. On top of that, she outright taunted me. She can't go down the slide anymore. She turned around and said, I'm gonna go talk to your manager. They'll agree with me. Somehow, it's the same head guard as last time. I feel like it's a curse at this point, honestly. The woman comes back with my head guard trailing her. This one, he told my baby she can't go down the slide. My head guard turned to me and just said, I saw the camera footage. This was just a formality. Then he turned to the woman. Ma'am, this lifeguard is correct. Your granddaughter broke the rules 3 times and even taunted him. She cannot go down the slide. And then the unthinkable happened. She slapped him. She slapped my head guard in the face. He looked at her, dumbfounded. I stepped in before he could explode. All right, ma'am, you are now being expelled from the premises. I'm going to take you to your room. You're going to pack your things. You're going to leave along with anyone you came with. She turned to me, shocked. For what reason? I paid to be here. I'm gonna stay. I'm just dumbfounded. You assaulted an employee. It doesn't matter if you paid to be here. Now, let's go to your room so you can pack. She just grunted and said, fine, I didn't want to stay here anyway. My head guard put his hand on my chest and stopped me. I can handle it. Stay on play. I nodded and they walked away. I watched him take her to her family and he explained what happened and then he escorted them out. So that was easily the most insane thing I've seen at this park. I'm writing this on my break and this happened just about 20 minutes ago. I would just love to be in that grandma's head to understand why she did what she did. I mean, is it not clear enough? Did OP not explain that she just broke the rules 3 times? That's it. That's all there is to it. Like, how is it that complicated? I'm trying to think of this more complicated answer, and it's not. Does she believe her perfect daughter? I guess so. But you know what? This granddaughter here, rather, was endangering her brother, and just that's it. That's it. You lose. OP wins. Let me know what you think. Way to go, OP. HOA president just did the dumbest thing imaginable. Posted by Insurance Throwaway 123. Backstory: I own a bunch of rentals in a bunch of communities. I'm no stranger to HOAs and legal battles. I have a company attorney on retainer. I just moved into a community and finally bought myself a house that I plan to stay in for a while. A month after closing, construction starts. Permits pulled all legal work during the day, follow all the CCRs, and so on. Karen recently got elected to the board, and in her own words, the war is on. This war started when I requested the following: HOA financial documents, 2 months, and they have not produced. A temporary reasonable accommodation after a major surgery. I was told to go screw myself. Her husband changing his oil in the parking lot. I got it on video on my security cam. And so far, I've received 4 violation notices. Speeding in the parking lot, a political sign, which is the opponent to her political sign in the front yard, a violation of peaceful enjoyment, which is construction noise, and finally harassing the HOA. This one was a cease and desist. Also, destruction of community property for washing my car with a hose. So my attorney goes to work on the upcoming fight. My attorney BCCs me on all emails to the association and the management company. I wish that I was making this up. I mean, Karen is so freaking stupid, she replied all on an email meant for just the property manager. A few snippets. I'm going to keep finding him and make his life heck. He is a nightmare and a punk kid with too much money. We're going to drown him in lawyer's fees and send him the bill until he finally submits to me. This is now personal. I'm on a mission to show that punk kid with his parents' money that I'm the dang president and he will do as I say. My lawyer called me 6 times at 10:30 last night and said, "Holy crap, check your email." 9 a.m., my attorney sent a cease and desist to the entire board and included a copy of the email. Mine and his phone have been blowing up non-stop from the 4 other board members and their attorney trying to just talk. This woman may be the stupidest person on earth. I honestly cannot wait to see the fallout from this. Now, I don't want to sue the association or get paid. I just want the board to make decisions that have good, positive impacts on the community and raise my property value. Suing the board, honestly, does nothing. The insurance company pays or it comes from reserve funds. Nothing happens to them personally because they are indemnified. I have only sued when I really have to. Last year, I won an ADA judgment against another property where I have a disabled tenant. I wound up giving the tenant half and donated a dog park to the community under the condition that the current administration resigns. My attorney is trying to figure out a way to get around her indemnity as a board member and go after her personally. Personally, HOA board members should be required to have licensure through the state, similar to realtors, and a state oversight committee. It's insane. Things need to be resolved in court with enormously expensive lawyers. An update. I'm going to sum this up and give as much detail as I can. I've also been drinking since noon, so this may be a little jumbly and I apologize in advance. My phone, Facebook, LinkedIn, all social presence stopped getting blown up by the other board members after the attorney made it clear to leave me alone. It's becoming harassment. Of course, due to COVID-19, courts are closed. The attorney sent them letters stating what his hourly rate was and they would be receiving a bill if it doesn't stop, and that seemed to work. Last night, my attorney calls and asked if I'd be willing to hop on a Zoom call with the entire board, Karen included, and the association's attorney. My attorney came to my house and we hopped on the call together. their lawyer started off aggressive, stating that my harassment of the board would not be tolerated and blah blah blah. My guess would be to intimidate us? My attorney shared the screen with the email open and silence. We assumed Karen told the rest of the board what had happened, but apparently she didn't give all the details, just that there was an email exchange and apparently I was being aggressive. My attorney and I aren't quite sure what they were all thinking, but once they all read the email, silence, and Karen immediately hopped off of the Zoom call. The VP asked if we can take a recess and call us right back in a few minutes. 10 minutes later, attorney gets an email with Karen's immediate resignation. We all hop back on the call, less Karen. The other 4 board members could not stop apologizing and kept asking the attorney why they were not informed of the brevity of the situation. He quickly hopped off the call, and we assume he won't be representing the association anymore. The other 4 members said that they would need to confer with counsel moving forward, but they will make this right. For right now, the board told me that I can leave my political signs up, but to just ignore Karen until they can figure out what to do. Unfortunately, in something to do with homestead, your house is protected against litigation, but my attorney did draft a demand letter to Karen personally for damages. Because the courts are closed, we can't serve her until the stay-in-place order is lifted and the courts reopen. But it was made clear that Karen is to have 0 contact with me, my family, my property, and so on. We are not waiting until the remaining board hires new representation next week, and we expect some sort of settlement request. Nothing super exciting, but she was fired immediately. They are also going to start searching for a new property management next week, but I'll update when we hear something. Side note, I was walking my dog this morning and Karen was outside and walked right up to me and started petting my dog like nothing happened. I have 300 cameras in front of my house that caught the entire thing. I asked her 3 times to back away and to stop. I put him back inside. The poor guy only got a 2-minute walk. And we called the police, who made it clear to her that if they have to come out again, she will be going to jail. In short, she isn't indemnified by the HOA and is no longer on the board. This is going to cost her and the HOA major bucks. Now, we did make it clear that we don't want any of the community's money, as it will only hurt the other homeowners. Karen is royally screwed. So the craziest thing about this is like the dumbest Karen ever to just launch out all those emails, just completely revealing her evil plans to just do really bad stuff to the OP in a really wrong way. Now, of course, you do not put the email of the person in send until you are ready to send it, but this doesn't help her. So she does this, she lies about it, the board gets together, they're like, holy crap, we didn't know Karen did this somehow. And then she gets fired immediately, goes back to OP, caught on all the cameras, hit with that legally, and then holy cow, she is going to jail if she does anything again, per the police. The fallout of this ridiculous Karen is immensely massive, and we found out what true idiocy leads to when you're the HOA president, Karen. Way to go, OP. I get injured on a delivery, and Karen berates me because the delivery is taking longer than usual, posted by Nomadicus Rex. I don't even know how this is going to go, but we gotta dive in. It's gonna be crazy. Here we go. So, last night was fun. I am disabled due to a hit-and-run driver. I don't get disability, so on my good days, when my back isn't hurting too much, I do delivery for a popular online retailer that also owns a chain of grocery stores. Last night, I start my delivery shift. Of course, Karens being Karens, the first order, which is upstairs, also includes cases of water and gallons of water, because of course it does. Since this apartment complex decides that 24-point type is an appropriate script to write their unit numbers on instead of anything that, say, a paramedic or a delivery person could see from any distance, I'm out of my car, on foot, looking for the apartment, since Karen did not answer either my text message or phone calls asking for help locating her delivery location. While I am on foot, heading back to my car because I think I've spotted the correct building number, a large and aggressive dog comes at me. I run and get in my car, but not without falling, twisting my ankle, and biting down so hard that I chipped a tooth, which sucks. I get in the car, and the dog is now gone. I don't know where he went. Did the owner of the dog catch it? I don't know. I was in the car in pain, catching my breath. So I call our on-the-road support folks, who generally are pretty helpful, and get permission to return this delivery to the store. And then Karen calls me back. I don't know why I answered. My can-do customer service instincts, but I told support, hold on, it looks like the customer is actually calling me back. Let me see if I can get this order delivered. Oh man. So I answer. Karen starts demanding why I haven't delivered the order yet, and I told her, hey, I just got injured by one of your neighbor's dogs. My ankle is hurt. Can you please just give me a little help here finding your place? I just want to get your groceries. And Karen goes on a rant about how the groceries aren't for her, they are for her daughter, who is a nursing student with a large protective dog. And her daughter normally uses a folding wagon for groceries, and maybe she'll come down and help me grab those groceries. Nope, Karen's daughter does not want to do that, but she'll make sure to keep her large protective dog inside. I'm left wondering if this is the same dog that tried to eat my liver. I told Karen that's okay. While I am expected to deliver the groceries to the door, dispatch has given me permission to return the order to the store. I can complete the order, the pain in my ankle hasn't set in that much, adrenaline and all, and Karen insists on me staying the whole time on the phone with her. And the whole time she's going on and on about how she wanted the delivery completed by a certain time, and now it's not going to be delivered on time. I told her, hey, I understand that. I didn't expect to have a dog come after me either, nor get hurt, but I'm completing the delivery in spite of being injured. Why was I so stupid? I couldn't put much weight on my ankle, so I couldn't carry as much as usual, and it took me a long time. So it took me about 4 to 5 trips to get this lady's stuff all in front of her daughter's door. The nursing student daughter who never so much as poked her head out to see if I was okay. Karen was angry at me the whole time, talking about how I raised her blood pressure so much that her chest was hurting. What? Huh? How's that? By delivering her grocery order and taking longer than usual to do so? I don't know yet if she called the company to complain, but it was the next to worst delivery I've ever been on. The worst being in 2018, where some yahoo out in the middle of nowhere decided to shoot at me for bringing them something that they ordered. Thankfully, the guy was a bad shot, and no, they did not get their delivery and were banned forever, but the police did nothing to the dude. So, it's the next day. I slept for like 10 or 11 hours, and I'm posting this. My ankle seems to have a mild sprain, my other foot hurts, and my tooth, it's still chipped. I'm waiting back to see if I'll get paid for the amount of time I had to work over thanks to this nonsense. Independent contractor work, yay. Fun times. An update. P.S. I don't know about most of y'all, but if someone was injured bringing me food, I would want to see that they were all right. I most certainly would be kind and sympathetic if it took a few extra minutes for them to bring me the food. I could have just not answered Karen's call, taken the groceries back to the store when I was done with my other deliveries, and still would have been paid. At worst, I would have missed out on a tip, if Karen actually tipped at all, but I also would have been paid for the extra time it took me to take those groceries back to the store. So, completing that order most definitely went against my best interest, and I'm left wondering if the dog that came after me was Karen's daughter's dog. People in this area can be so irresponsible about dogs, and look, I love doggos, they're my favorite critters. Holy Toledo OP, I mean, you went the extra mile, the extra marathon, have you? And then the Karen is still ungrateful, the daughter doesn't come out to help, which is probably Karen 2.0 Jr. right there, and then the dog, we're left wondering, did they sick the dog on OP? I sure hope not. But all being said, Karen needs to go get her own groceries. She can do it herself. She's a big girl, she can handle it, she's an adult, but you know what, OP? Thank you for being a kind soul, and I am sorry that Karen here could not see through what was going on, your injuries, and everything else that happened, despite all of that. Way to go, OP, and Karen, what are you doing, lady? What are you doing? Let me know what you think in the comments, or if you're on the podcast, come over to YouTube and let me know there. Take out fires back at Karen, posted by Carl. This one is hilarious. Karen leaves a review on a site, 2.25 stars, saying, "The wrap was all soggy, so I couldn't eat it. Just ate the chicken, and the burgers were missing food that was advertised." What? So then the restaurant comes back and says, "Hi Karen, had a look into your order. You ordered 2 burger meals and a wrap and chips, which were all packed and sent out to you. We can only deliver what you order. Maybe cut down on your drinking and then you won't forget what you ordered." That's hilarious because typos and all, they literally just come in and prove this Karen wrong, saying, "Hey, you're essentially lying. You are lying in your review and giving us low stars to boot." That's funny, short, and hilarious. Dad passed away. His condo HOA sent me a nasty letter since I'm not 55 and older, posted by Carrie. My dad passed away unexpectedly last spring, and I was the executor of his estate. My mom passed 2 years earlier, and I didn't know Dad updated his deed after Mom died to a Ladybird deed, transferring the condo to my sister and I equally when he died. This meant that we did not have to go to probate court, thank goodness. It's good to note that the deed immediately updated in the county record system upon his death, and our county allows public searches of these records. His condo was in an over 55 community common in Florida, and I lived about 15 minutes away from him. Despite the death being unexpected, I was able to clean out the condo, freshen it up, do some repairs, donate, list and sell items. I was able to distribute family pieces to other family members, even hire a realtor, and list it within 3 weeks of his passing. This was no small feat, as I work full-time for a tech startup, which is so many work hours. I'm a single parent, and my sister lives in the Midwest. The first thing I had to do was get the death certificate and deed to submit to the HOA and security office to have my name and phone number as the owner at the guarded gatehouse, so I'd be called when contractors, donation centers, and potential buyers went there. The HOA was aware of his death. They had a copy of the certificate. A month after his death, 1 week after the condo went on the market, I get a nasty letter from the HOA demanding proof that I'm 55 and older because blah blah blah, our community blah blah standards and rules. I ignore the letter because nothing I'd respond with would be productive, and I wanted to not make waves when it came time for a buyer to get approved by the HOA. 4 months later, we get a buyer, go into contract, and she submits her HOA application. And we wait. Week 1, week 2, week 3, no response from the HOA. I, my realtor, the buyer's agent, and the buyer all call and email asking for an update with no response. Every month I'm paying bills out of his account, including HOA fees, renewed property insurance, and had to stop over there every few days to make sure all was good. My grief was coming out sideways since I didn't really address it. I focused on the estate tasks. I finally had enough. Here are some snippets of the email I sent to the HOA when I again requested an update on the approval. This was the only thing holding up the closing. HOA has absolutely no problem sending a terribly cruel and insensitive letter to me asking for proof that my sister and I are over 55 to have the right to own property in this community. Sending that letter so soon after his death is unconscionable. However, your team can't be bothered to answer emails and return calls. HOA and property management company know that the property was transferred as part of a death because I went to the HOA office to update the owner record and security office, and to do so, I had to provide a copy of the death certificate in both instances. Your office knows the unit is on the market because my realtor provided her information to security. There was a lockbox on the door, and the security logs show numerous showings. You know it's on the market because I paid $50 for the budget, financials, and HOA documents from your office to give to my realtor. At the time I received the letter, the property was already on the market. Dad passed away on this date, and I had that condo on the market the first week of May. I have done everything in my power to get it in on the market and in contract with a 55-plus-year-old buyer to stay within your guidelines. Could you personally turn around an estate while grieving so fast? I did, and am trying to finalize this last piece of the estate so my family can start closing this open wound. Whomever is monitoring the deed transfer needs to do the morally right thing and double check that you're not sending nastygrams to relatives of the deceased so soon, and cross-check to see that if a relative is doing their level best to sell the property. A simple Realtor or Zillow search will show if it's on the market, or maybe just talk to the people within your office. This is a senior community, and I cannot be the first or only executor of an estate that was passed to someone under 55. This can't be new for this area. Or maybe I am rare, seeing as both of my parents are gone before I even turned 44. Please note that my parents didn't have a mortgage. This sale is all profit for the estate. I could have put the condo on the market at a lower price that would guarantee a quicker sell, but I didn't want to hurt property values and comps for the neighbors surrounding my dad, who were very good to both of my parents. This buyer is buying it for $90,000 more than my parents did in 2010. You will see that I have not paid the November HOA payment, since our closing date should have been in October if your team had turned this around in an appropriate time frame. You can get November's prorated portion of the HOA fee from me and the buyer during the closing. Want your money? Do your job and send the approval letter, and I will be able to complete my job by ensuring that someone who is 55 plus owns the property. Those jerks sent the letter via email within an hour of my email. No message in the body of the email, just the approval letter attached. The day of closing, I did give the daytime security guard a thank you card with a gift card for all of her help and the extra work created by having a ton of businesses and buyers come through the gate. She actually saw me an hour after he died when I ran over there to get items for the funeral home. I'll always remember her kindness each time that she'd see me. This is a terrible situation, and I am very sorry that OP has to go through this, because when someone passes away in your family, I know you've likely experienced it, as have I, it's something that you want to focus on just that. You don't want to have family arguing about this and that and the other, but in this case, it's not family, it's the HOA having zero compassion. Like, OP literally had to go out, put this long email in and say, hey, I'm going by the rules, you're not, I will bring the hammer and the heat if you do not listen to me. And they finally had no other choice when they sent that email back. They're probably like, oh crap, she got us, we're screwed. And then they had to do it. But it shouldn't have even come to that point for OP to do that during this grief. So you know what? OP took down that HOA with the right and proper things, keeping a clear head, focused in on the goal, and the HOA delivered their end that they had to do and lost this battle. Way to go, OP, and I am sorry that you had to even go through this in the first place. First experience with the 100% authentic Karen, posted by Dirk Pita. I'm a 28-year-old male and I'm a customer service representative for a very reputable insurance company in the US. I have experience in this job in different companies ever since I finished high school. Now, as a disclaimer, I do not and would never work in underwriting. I'm just in charge of regular CSR stuff. I don't have a say on insurance claims, and that's an entirely different department. Also, I'm an outsourced employee. Most customers don't mind. Some occasionally ask where I'm from, and then there's the very rare butthole that asks for someone that speaks English as soon as they hear my accent. I don't care, I'm used to it. Generally speaking, American customers are very nice and patient, more than the ones in my country. So I never really understood where do all the retail and customer service horror stories from the internet came from. Today, I did. So, Karen calls. As soon as I answer, I hear a lot of background noise, and the first thing that I do after introducing myself is to ask for the policy number. I hear a man in the background yell, and between a lot of noise, what I realize is, in fact, the policy number, and I ask him to repeat it since I could not hear very well. Karen decides to take the lead and let me know that she is driving through the interstate while calling me, and that she does not want me to waste her time. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? I kid you not when I tell you this woman started screeching to the point that I had no idea what she was saying. Yes, I am not a native English speaker, but it's never been a barrier for me. I could not, for the life of me, understand why this woman was so angry. Between the insane yelling, I can make up something about her policy being canceled and her being charged anyways. And seeing the direction that this call was going, I decided that my best move was to immediately contact a supervisor through chat to get some assistance. I informed Karen of this, and I asked her to give me just a few minutes while I check on my side of the screen with what is happening with her policy. Karen, however, decided that I was a genie and I was supposed to grant her wishes and solve the issue that she was having without even knowing what it was and without checking for possible solutions. She decided that I was not allowed to place her on a hold, but I've had my share of angry customers and I know better than to let them take control of the call. So I explicitly tell her that if she wants my help, she will need to cooperate with me and to let me figure out what is going on. She reluctantly agrees, but says she will be counting when I specify the hold will not be longer than 5 minutes. First supervisor interaction, and I'm just like, I have no idea what this woman wants. She's yelling at me, very angry. What's happening here? So we start piecing together emails and notes and everything left and realize that she requested for the policy to be canceled and provided proof to have a backdate cancellation, and it was all processed smoothly. She even got a response telling her that she would get the refund that she expected, and now I was even more confused. My assumption was that maybe she was just angry because she hasn't been refunded yet, which is just bank time shenanigans and, well, nothing we can do about it. So I'm like, okay ma'am, don't worry, you will be getting your refund, it's just bank timing. And that's when she informs me, at least in a coherent way, the real issue. She was magically charged again last night. So I double check and triple check with my supervisor. There are literally no traces of this supposed charge that she got last night. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't really believe that she was lying about it, we had no proof of it. So I asked her to send us a copy of the bank statement so we can issue a refund right away. And she just loses it. Once again, she starts screeching about how she's driving to go into surgery, how she's going to sue the company, me personally, all the colorful insults that you can imagine, including my accent and country of origin. How we stole her money and she wants hers back. I insist that I just need some record of it to issue the refund. I genuinely try to reason with her, explaining to her that I can't just issue a refund for someone who calls asking for it when we're not showing it in our system, and that I genuinely want to help her. Apparently, she was so freaking angry, she was driving like a maniac and got pulled over by the police and was given a ticket. She asked for my name so she could send me the ticket, as she was not going to pay for it because we were the ones causing her distress. I kindly explained to her that she shouldn't be calling while driving, and that is not our responsibility. However, I gave her my name. Good luck with that, I'm on the other side of the world. Anyway, she said that's what hands-free is for, and I had to hold back laughing because it only then hit me how stupid this woman clearly was. The part that really got under my skin was not the insults and the yelling, the racism or whatever. It was just how insanely unreasonable this woman was. Her concern was completely valid, and I told her multiple times that she was right to be upset and right to call us to get things fixed. But she needed to cooperate with me, and she was just hell-bent on releasing all of her anger and frustration on me. She literally would scream insults at me and then stop and say, "What else can I call you so you can understand how angry I am?" The worst part is that in my employee handbook, I am 100% allowed and justified to hang up on a customer like this. Karen thought she had some sort of hold over me, but that was not the case. I could have ended the 2-hour-long call at any time that I wanted with all the verbal abuse that she was throwing at me, But I still wanted to help her because I did believe that if she was being charged, it was unfair and I had to fix it. I started to get suspicious when she consistently refused to send me proof of the charges, no matter how much that I reassured her that this would all be fixed as soon as she did. It came to a point where she started telling me that if she died in surgery and made her husband a widow, it would be my personal fault. Don't ask me why, but that made me snap. For the first time in the call, I told her to not speak to me like that and to not say stuff like that. She was so thrown aback from my reaction that she calmed down for 5 minutes, give or take. I actually had hope then that maybe we could end this on a good note, but to no avail. Karen still wanted me to trust her word that she was being charged $59 on a canceled policy and wanted the money back. I finally told her that if she was not willing to send proof to dispute the charges with the bank. She said that she shouldn't have to call her bank, and I told her, "You've told me many times that this is illegal and fraud. Given what you've told me yourself, I strongly encourage you to dispute the charges with your bank." I asked if there was anything else that I could do for them, and I ended the call while they were still insulting me. I changed my status to take a breather and realized that most of my coworkers were looking at me, extremely concerned. Apparently, the yelling could be heard through my headset. My supervisors, more than one, joined in to help, congratulated me for keeping my cool and keeping control of the call. I still feel guilty because I couldn't help her. I'm not saying this for pity points, I really do. I was just so willing to help her because I love my job. But she just wanted someone to be mad at. Screw you, Karen. Oh my goodness, it's like she has this lying scheme going on to try to get extra money, and then when the OP is like, hey, I need the proof, she's doesn't have it. So what does she resort to doing? Not taking ownership, not saying sorry, insulting the OP, because that's where she goes, because she's a Karen, right? That's where their mind goes, the half a brain that they have, because they don't actually, statistically, scientifically, they don't have a full brain, studies have shown recently, and we just know that this is just a big old farce that she's throwing up. Karen, you're throwing up this farce and you're throwing up garbage words at OP out of your mouth, so please stop. Let me know what you think in the comments about this as well. Way to go hanging on there, OP. $50,000 collector cars are eyesores to the HOA, posted by Whip Solo. Okay, so I've been dealing with this for the last 3 months, and it has finally reached its climax. For a little backstory, I own a towing company, and I'm currently renting a home within an HOA that I was not informed of when I signed the lease. My wife and I broke ground on our dream home days before lockdown went into effect last year. We signed a 2-year lease as we were offered a $250 reduction in rent if we did. The house has a 3-car garage attached to it, as well as parking for an additional 2 cars in the driveway. I keep my tow truck in the driveway or parked out on the street in front of the house, as it is classified as an emergency vehicle by the state, and it's not merely a commercial vehicle. This means it is not against the HOA to have it in the neighborhood. We also own many cars, as all 3 people living in the home are car nuts. Now, we do not keep that all at the home, but we do have a total of 6 cars at the home, plus the tow truck, which means 2 vehicles are always parked on the street. For reference, the cars we keep at home are a 1967 4-door Chevy Impala, a 67 Ford Galaxy, a 93 Mazda RX-7, a Nissan Silva, Subaru, and a BMW. Of these cars, all of the imports have wide body kits that cost between $4 and $12 grand. This is important as to the value of the vehicles as well as looks. Look up Rocket Bunny and Liberty Walk to get an idea of what they look like. Okay, now for the story. After living here for just over 9 months, and as the lockdowns were ending, the world opened its weary eyes just to get punched in the face again. The HOA that we had absolutely no idea existed started by ticketing the tow truck which is parked on the street, stating that it cannot be parked on the street. Okay. I'll put it in the driveway, no problem. I pay the $150 fine to the HOA. And after getting the contract from the landlord and reading it, I figure it's best to just go along with it and not ruffle any feathers. By moving the tow truck into the driveway, I started parking the RX-7 on the streets. Now for the reason I listed the other cars. Now the two classic cars are kept in the garage, as well as the BRZ, as it's my project car, and I'm in the middle of building a very high-end drift car out of it. The other two people in the house drive the BMW and the Nissan every day. The very next day, I return home, and there are tickets on both the RX-7 and the Silvia, which are parked on the street by our driveway. Numerous neighbors are also parked on the street, mind you, without tickets from the HOA. I immediately call the butthole in charge of the HOA to ask what the heck is going on. He tells me that our junk is devaluing the neighborhood and cannot be parked on the streets, and cites a rule in the HOA guidelines about vehicles being in disrepair or essentially a junk status needing to be put in a garage. I laughed, full-on gut chuckle. The guy I'm talking to drives an early 2000s Cadillac that may be worth $10,000. Butthole tells me that if the vehicles continue to be parked on the street, he will have them towed. Okay, let's play. I told the butthole that he needs to read his own manual and look at the vehicles he's talking about. Clearly, these cars are not in disarray. 10 days after the initial ticketing, he calls for a tow truck, and this is where I should mention that the reason my tow truck is listed as an emergency vehicle is because my company has the county police contract for their towing, as well as the township. When Small Guy Towing shows up to impound my vehicles, I'm not home. I get a call from Small Guy Towing that he's been sent to impound my cars. Now, we actually know each other from the businesses that we operate, and I often kick him work when we're holding over a 90-minute ETA to not upset customers. Small Guy Towing tells me that he has to tow my cars due to his contract with the HOA, but he doesn't have a truck that can tow these lowered cars without damaging them. Small Guy Towing asked me to come home and remove the bumpers so they'll go on his truck. Well, I told him that wasn't going to happen, and I hate to look for the other guy towing to send overflow work to while we see how the courts feel about the impounding and potential damages to the cars. He wisely decides to not tow the vehicles. Now, this was October of 2020. Since then, Small Guy Towing has called me dozens of times about the butthole calling him repeatedly to tow the vehicles. He tells him that the only company in the area that can tow these vehicles is my company. Finally, on July 5th, the butthole from the HOA calls my company to impound my cars. Okay, no problem. I sent 3 of my guys over in the shop pickup to drive my cars back to the shop where they were parked and kept for the last month. The wife started driving the Impala regularly as it is summer. Friday, we went to small claims court as I sued the HOA for towing costs, $250 per vehicle, as well as storage on each vehicle, $62 per day each, and an additional $3,000 for inconveniences due to not having the cars for daily transportation. Add on an additional $1,500 for lawyer fees too. After roughly 5 minutes, the judge asks for photos from the butthole HOA of the cars. He gives the judge the photos, and then the judge comments on how nice the cars are, and they're clearly not in disarray. I thank the judge and ask him if he can see the Cadillac parked on the streetway in the background of the photo, as well as the other 5 or 6 cars in frame. The judge affirms this and asks the HOA guy about these cars. He states that they are not in violation and even coughs up that the Cadillac is his car. The judge smiles a toothy grin and confesses to being a car guy and estimates that each of the 2 cars that have been impounded are worth $50,000 each, and the HOA guy's Cadillac would clearly be the eyesore of the community. The judge then dismisses the HOA's claims and explicitly tells him that he is not to tow any vehicles out of the neighborhood without police confirmation of their disarray or abandonment. Judge goes further and states that the HOA is in violation of the township ordinance as the streets are not private streets but belong to the township. The judge then grabs what I assume is a calculator and starts punching away. After about a minute and a half of pure silence, the judge looks up and says, Okay, as stated before, HOA guy's claim for the HOA has been dismissed, and as for Whip's solo countersuit, I will rule in favor of the amount of $10,100 and $65.50 in court cost to Butthole's HOA. Butthole HOA guy lost his freaking mind. He went on a rant about communism and how the judge was the problem with this country, and into election conspiracies and every whack job theory you'd hear from people like Alex Jones. The judge warned him twice and finally ordered him in contempt and invited him to have a weekend stay on the county's dime at the local jail. HOA guy will be home tonight as the judge set to release him at 6 p.m. The cars are back in their original spots, and I cannot wait for the hand wave and the grin as HOA guy comes home this evening. The funniest thing about this story right here is that, okay, we're going to tow your cars. Oh wait, you're not supposed to. Don't care, we're going to do it anyway. And it turns out nobody else can tow them but OP's company. So naturally he's got the upper hand in this, and he just hauls them off to his own shop place, takes the guy to court, proves that he is actually the winner here, and that the HOA guy's car is the eyesore itself. Top it all off, icing on the cake. The judge is a car guy, so he knows what OP's talking about, and he can just rule in his favor. He knows what's going on, and then everything falls apart. This house of cards that the HOA has developed, and OP comes out the winner. Way to go. Karen yells at the security guard for doing her job, posted by Daddy Dorian Art. My mother is well known to be a Karen, even joking about it herself sometimes. She's usually really sweet, but when it comes to staff or workers, her Karen side comes out full force. I have many stories about her antics, so she is labeled here as a Karen, since she wears the name proudly. Me and my partner are moving out of our house to a new town, so last week I moved back home with my parents for a few days to clean out my old storage room, while my partner went down to the new town for his first day of school. My dad had a seizure the first day that I moved home, so my mom, Karen, asked me to help her with some general shopping while my grandmother watched my 4 siblings and took care of my dad. I drove us around town and to a few stores, eventually ending up at a Kmart. Think Walmart for us Kiwis, but no food, only general items. She wanted to get some workout gear, so we go in, we do our shopping, and we head to the checkouts. Here's where things get going. She grabbed the receipt and I grabbed the items, getting ready to walk out of the store. There had been lots of thefts recently due to the economic climate of my country at the moment, so security will quickly glance at your receipt, see the number of items that you have, and let you out. Usually they don't do this to everyone, just shady people, which has gotten the company in hot water because of racism and discrimination. So the company now makes it an effort to check all receipts, which I'm fine with. As we walk out, my mother makes it past the security scanners before the young lady working as a security guard asks to see the receipt. Big mistake. My mother immediately screws her face up and makes more than a few scoffing sounds before exclaiming loudly, "Excuse me? Do I look like someone who would shoplift?" At this point, everyone at the tills is looking over, and I feel like melting into a puddle to get away as I have social anxiety. The poor lady puts her hands up in an "oh no, Karen on the loose" gesture and politely explains that we need to check everyone's receipts so we aren't discriminating. Mother Karen puffs up and screws her face up more. But do I look like a shoplifter? All my clothes are labeled, all expensive brands. She then scoffs again, winding up for a whole tirade, waving the little paper that would save me from embarrassment all around, all while flapping her lips like a shocked fish. She is slowly turning into a lovely shade of tomato red and looks like she's going to burst. Realizing things are going to get much, much worse, I finally pick myself up out of my mental puddle, grab the receipt from her claws, and show the security guard, who's still attempting to placate the raging she-beast. I hand it over politely saying, "Here, have a look. Is this okay?" while gazing longingly at those sliding doors, as I know salvation from the dirty looks hitting the back of my head is only a few steps away. The poor security guard waves me through, and I grab my mother beast's shoulder to push her out. She relents, moving through and muttering about rights and managers and not doing her job, stamping her feet like a toddler. I look over my shoulder as we walk out and give the security lady, who looked like she had just been slapped, a little smile and mouthed apology. The last words I hear before the doors to salvation slid shut was the security guard commenting in a small voice, "I only needed to see the receipt. It's my job." I felt horrified. Relief flooded me as I realized that it was over. Embarrassment burning at my cheeks as I shepherded the Karen to the car, all while she's still going on about how outrageous this was and how she feels disgusting and like a vagrant, all because she was asked to show her receipt. Thinking this was over, I hopped in the front seat, hands shaking and eyes tearing up. But no, the Karen turns to me, scrunched up her face, and made one more remark. "This only happened because you look homeless. Wear a dress next time." Oh, thanks, Mom. Thanks. Oh my goodness. I mean, when you leave a store, if they check the receipt, it's nothing personal. They are literally doing their job, and all you got to do is show it. Then they let you go. They say, "Thank you, bye, have a great day," all the kind pleasantries. And now Miss Karen Mom comes in. It's the mom. That's what makes it even worse, right? Because it's your own mom, and you're embarrassed in the family and having to explain like, "Hey, I'm sorry." And then it's just so much worse when it's not a stranger like that. And then, only to get out to the car, thinking it's done, seeing all the wrath and chaos that was caused, the explosion happening in the distance as you're walking away, not looking at it. Then your mom gets to the car and says, "It's because of you, not me." Does that make your blood boil? Because that's what a narcissist does, is they blame you and not them. Take some responsibility, own up to yourself, Karen, because you have majorly failed this one. You failed it hard, and OP wins. Good job, OP. Way to go. Karen demands a copy of Super Mario Bros. And accuses my entire department of theft, posted by Gold and Silver 61. Oh, this one's going to be rough, I can already tell. Here we go. With the new Super Mario Bros. Movie opening in theaters soon, I thought I would share this story from when I worked at good old Wally World back around the mid-2000s. I was filling in at the electronics department, and it was a slow day. I was standing in the middle of the department waiting for a customer to assist. Finally, a middle-aged woman, the Karen of the story, walks in. I approached her and asked her, "Hi, how can I help you?" She replied, "I want to purchase the newest Super Mario Bros. Game." I said, "Hey, not a problem." I led her to the Nintendo cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a copy of the game. But Karen said, No, not that one." I responded, "Ma'am, this is the newest copy of Super Mario Bros." No, I want Super Mario for the PlayStation." I informed her that Mario is a Nintendo licensed property and that it is not sold on PlayStation. She responded, "Yes, it is. I saw a commercial advertising it for the PlayStation, and that's what I want to buy." I tried my best to tell her that she did not see a commercial advertising Mario for the PlayStation. Of course, this went as well as you expected. She shouted, "Don't tell me what I did or didn't see. I know I saw a commercial advertising Mario for the PlayStation, and that's what I want." I showed her the copyright logo on the game case, stating that Mario was a Nintendo licensed game, but she still refused to believe me. So I led her to our PlayStation display case and said, "Ma'am, this is our current selection of PlayStation games for sale. As you can see, there are no copies of Super Mario Bros. So even if you are right, we just don't carry copies of the game here." With this, I had just hoped that she would just accept that we didn't sell copies of the game for the PlayStation and just walk away. But if she did, I wouldn't be posting here. Instead, she started accusing me of stealing all the copies of Mario Brothers for the PlayStation to sell online at double the cost so I can make a profit. Dumbfounded, I asked what the heck she was basing this off of. Realizing I wasn't going to get through to her, I called over a coworker for assistance. I turned to the coworker and said, "You don't know the conversation I've had with this lady." He nods yes. I turned to Karen and said, "There is no way I could have prompted him on what you wanted coming into this department. So, with that in mind, please ask my coworker what you want." Karen turns to my coworker and tells him that she wanted the newest Super Mario Brothers on the PlayStation. He tells her the same thing that I did, that Mario isn't sold on PlayStation consoles. Of course, she lumps my coworker into the conspiracy that the two of us must be stealing all the copies of the game for PlayStation and selling them online at double the cost. The department manager finally sees the scene that Karen was making. He rushes over, tries to calm her down and tell her that Super Mario Brothers isn't sold on the PlayStation, but she lumps him in on it and, as the department manager, accused him of being the ringleader of the operation. Cue the crocodile tears as she says, "All I wanted to do was to buy a copy of Super Mario for the PlayStation for my son's birthday, but you monsters have ruined his and countless other children's birthdays by stealing the game from the store so you can sell them online at double the cost. Well, Walmart has lost a valued customer this day. I'm going to go to another store, find a copy of Super Mario Brothers for the PlayStation, bring it back here, and expose you all." Karen began to storm off, but I couldn't let her get the last word in. I yelled back, "Ma'am, go ahead and try to find a copy of Super Mario Brothers for the PlayStation at a different store. If you can, bring it back here and I will give you my next paycheck." Needless to say, we never saw or heard from her again. I guess she wasn't able to find Super Mario Brothers for the PlayStation after all. Oh, look here, since 1985 when Super Mario Brothers released, even before that when he was with Donkey Kong and all that other stuff, that has never existed. That Karen has such an entitlement issue saying that I am right, I heard this, and I know what's going on, that even if midway through this conversation she realized, oh crap, I'm wrong, she would not say that because that would involve humility and dropping the pride and admitting defeat and being wrong. So she doubles down on it and just accuses everyone else, lashing out to just deflect, taking what they're saying, deflecting it, and then boom, they just completely level her out. She says the whole department is on some gigantic eBay theft ring or some bullcrap, and then finally push comes to shove or shouting, and then OP offers a paycheck because there is literally no licensing for the Mario franchise outside of Nintendo. If you know anything about Nintendo, you'll know that they are pretty dang sticklers about what their IPs are, their intellectual properties. OP, thank you for holding your ground, but even from the get-go, she wasn't going to listen, man. It's a lost cause with this Karen, as they all are. But of course, way to go, OP. Father and mother died, and a lawyer is saying their property joins an HOA after their death, posted by Boogerpig and Spaz. My father moved into a rural area in 1980, a few years after I was born, and soon came my sister. They stayed there ever since. We grew up and so on and so forth. Dad died in 2012 and Mom died in 2018. My sister moved away in 2002 to get married and have kids and so on, and she doesn't want to be involved in the affairs since I'm the eldest son and she lives 3/4 of the country away. Over the years, the area was developed and is now more of a suburb. Either way, I take possession of the house through the will, affairs of the estate, and so on. Basic total control, nothing to worry about. I get a letter in the mail in February that my parents agreed that after their death to sell the house through the trust to the HOA, and the property would be up for sale. I find no such documentation, and my demand to the lawyer, which is a legit licensed lawyer, is going unanswered to provide the written documentation. I've left a few messages with the admin there, but I'm not putting any effort into it if they are not going to respond. I am not one for sentimental value, and I really am not attached to the house. So if they want it, the price is going to be dictated by me, not them. I live a couple towns away, and I have no interest in moving in. My house is bigger, or even thinking about keeping it. Firstly, my dad was getting senile and might have agreed to something. And my mom is a pushover and might have agreed to something too. And if it isn't in writing, does it mean that it's useless? What if they just do come after the sale? Should I ask for the top dollar and or maybe just fight it, making it a non-HOA house in an ocean of HOA property? After receiving my green slip back and leaving multiple voicemails, I finally got a letter in the mail, but it was basically saying it was a verbal agreement. Not gonna fly. Good luck, HOA, because I'm sending in a letter today demanding an in-face meeting on the property with the lawyer, HOA members, or I will be asking the Board of Zoning to change it so I can install a wastewater treatment facility. So, after receiving a certified letter at the end of April from the HOA's attorney, he basically ignored me about the verbal agreement details. I contacted my corporate attorney, who I've known for nearly 2 decades now, and he's got a Connecticut bar license, which is the state that we're in, so he'll help if I need him to. After not hearing from their attorney for over a couple of weeks, leaving calls and messages with his admin, I realized that I was not going to get what I wanted, which was literally to talk to the guy and get the HOA's documentation. So, one last college try at the end of April, and nothing still. I got crap to do, and now all I got is a slab and some overgrown lawn, which, with the coming of spring and the constant rain, is turning into a mud pit. I live 2 towns over, and I don't have time for this. On May 3rd, I sent a notice to the surrounding houses that construction was to begin on a new sewage treatment plant and to contact the HOA board for more information, knowing it would take USPS a day or 2. I brought the dozer back on a flatbed and planted it in the driveway where you couldn't miss it. 8 a.m. on Tuesday the next week, I got a call from an HOA representative wanting to argue with me in regards to this new plant and so forth about like property rights and ownership and so on. Not gonna lie, choice words and yelling ensued, ending with, "If your dang lawyer would call me back, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Good luck with the smell." Keep in mind, nothing filed with the town, no real desire to create a sewage treatment plant, but if you want to ignore me, good luck. About 45 minutes later, I get a call on my cell from an attorney, and I swear I was talking to a hostage instead of a lawyer. I told him I will see him at my parents' address at 3 p.m. and we'll finish this deal one way or another, and also bring a laptop. He wanted to argue about not officially meeting in an office and blah blah blah, and I just hung up. That was on May the 7th. I knew full well why I chose to send the letter on the 3rd, that because on Wednesday coming up, the HOA board has its monthly meeting, so I wanted it on that agenda. For about an hour, calls would come in from the attorney's admin wanting to change it to his offices, wanted to work this out by mail, blah blah. Nope, 3 p.m. on site. I called my attorney, and he luckily was out of court by 11 and would come down. I had lunch with him, and then we headed back to the property. I grabbed a couple of lawn chairs, a folding table from my house, and my attorney brought a laptop and a printer. If you know my attorney, I've known him for decades now, and he is a no bullcrap, let's get it done, no mercy kind of guy, right from law school. He went from corporate IP to family law, and he dabbles in real estate. He's a really good guy to know. 2:55 rolls around, and they show up. The lawyer and 2 board members, one who looks like he should move to God's waiting room, and the other a mid-50s kind of guy who's probably an orthodontist. We all make introductions and sit, and I say, this is how it's going to go. You want this property, and I want to sell. I am tired of the games and the non-responsiveness. In the next 15 minutes, you are going to buy this property pending approval, the HOA board majority, and you can do whatever you want with this place. You'll own it, free and clear. The orthodontist speaks up and attempts to say, as conveyed to us by past board members, that your father advised us that the property would automatically be transferred to the HOA upon your parents' death. He actually sounded articulate and with some authority. I like him. So I say, yeah, what documents do you have to support that? Nothing, just witnesses. And he goes into a discussion on how it was told to them by board members and that their unresponsiveness was because they thought they were in the clear and no reason to work with me because it was all legal, blah, 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 blah. And that they were going to get the property by some court decree shortly. I look over to my attorney and he looks back. Well, fortunately for you, that's at least 50% true. You'll get this property, but it's not free. Brass tacks, this amount of money you pay, all closing costs, and you'll have my signature the minute you have approval. We'll facilitate the docs and the routing wire information. The eyes of the crypt keeper and the ortho went wide, and he said, that's a lot of money. Well, we'll have to bring it to the board to vote, but I'm not sure. Good enough for me. We have some preliminary docs and an official letter to present. I looked over at my attorney and was printing the docs away on the table. The lawyer says, well, it'll take up to 30 days and the bank check will take as long for an entity of this type if this is approved. My attorney says, the best thing I heard in a long time. Love you, Mark. We have e-file capability with 3-day turnaround. Filing to the state, towns, and wire transfers takes no more than 15 minutes unless the feds are backed up. There's no title issue, no liens, no environmental or waste removal issues. It's yours to enjoy as you see fit. I'll be available right after the HOA meeting to file the docs and Tuesday to receive the transfer. That's why he gets paid. He hands over the docs, standard P&S with the amount just typed in, with our cover letter for the board. I grabbed the ortho's business card. Apparently, he's a school admin, and the other guy is a retired electrician, and the attorneys as well. Well, that board meeting went well. I was told by a resident that it was a lot of arguing about not having documentation, wanting to actually challenge my ownership of the estate and property in court, and eventually the amount. Yeah, I asked a lot, but then again, they could have countered, and well, they didn't. It was not a good meeting, but in the end, it was approved. Apparently, another lawyer who was a resident basically told them that they had no standing and that I could do whatever I want with it, with or without the board's approval. I don't know if the HOA lawyer was there. My lawyer dropped by at 10:15 p.m. at a Pub 99 and I signed the docs for the final P&S, and we had beers as he filed online. He said I would get a copy in a week and would file paper copies with the town, but the deal is done when the money is transferred. Today, 8:15 a.m., I got a message that the HOA initiated a wire transfer, and around 8:45 got confirmation of the receipt of funds. My parents bought the place in December 1980 for $28,500. It served us well, and I flipped it for nearly 27 times that. It was a good home, but you do have to move on. It'll be built or turned into a park or something, but alas, it's over and done with. Most of it is going to my kids' college and technical school tuition, and the rest to my sister for her kids. Thank you, Dad. Now this is very important. Clueless User 37 said, Mark made you $769,500. Mark hopes he gets a cut of it. An update to the update. Time passed like it does, and the property did get a house on it, a yard, a fancy fence, and a manicured lawn. Well, COVID hit, and no one was available for anything, and I had no reason to visit the area since it was not owned by me, and my kids had no idea what it was about. Until last month, I was driving through because the highway that connects my town to the city I work in goes straight through my old town. I stopped in to get a tire pressure check, which there's a nail in the sidewall, but it was in the inner wall. I put some air in the tire, and then I got some drinks, and lo and behold, one of my old high school friends was working at the Cumbies, and I haven't seen her in decades. She didn't know me for an instant, but her name tag gave it away to me, and we started talking. I was in no rush. Apparently, the HOA that was running the place got caught in some shady dealings with some monies. The board members about 2 years previously were asked about the HOA financials, the distributions, and so on, and all got tied up in some legal quagmire due to them not producing these reports. Apparently, some of the board members were embezzling and overcharging the HOA from their friends' companies that did maintenance and services for the HOA and its members. Someone got smart and started asking questions, started to press their rights, and it eventually, I was told, ended up in court. It only got resolved mid last year, but after her friends got to find out they had been overcharged and overpaying and writing off things that should have never been done without any kind of approval. It's currently being overseen by a judge at the moment, but it does look like some of those people are going to start going to the Gray Bar Hotel for a while. I was telling her about my parents' place and how we used to take our bikes down the street and so on, and she told me that the street is completely demolished and replaced with a double-wide street and so on, with houses on both ends. They want to put in a gate, but the town said these are streets that are maintained by the town and you cannot prohibit free access, which was another garbage show as well, which was at the town about 3 years back. That HOA was just a hot garbage fire, and what eventually did them in was poor accounting, embezzlement, and cronyism. When I looked for my first house, I made it very clear, absolutely no homeowners associations, no radon, no leasing, etc. That is a quagmire of hate and anger that you don't want. The more I read into the history of an HOA, I realize that it was formed to keep minorities out of an area, and there's still a lot of deeds out there that have these weird no minority or African American stipulations still built into them. I don't get it, and I don't want to. I thought it was hilarious, and that tire eventually cost me about $200 to get replaced. I mean, this is amazing because this is $750,000. Now, $28-some thousand then is not that much now, but if you have almost $1 million in today's money, you drop that into an index fund or something, you let it sit there for a while over 20 years, you're going to be sitting pretty by the end of that. You could even put this with your existing retirement account and just retire off of it, depending on your age and your assets, all that you have. This is an amazing story because OP stuck to his guns, did not give up, knew the rules, and so do I, and just completely delivered on that HOA, not giving in to their fear-mongering and evil factor, but standing up for the truth. And Mark left his mark with OP, and they just completely nailed it. And then it just gets worse and worse to find out they're embezzling and stealing funds and having all sorts of just corrupt, fiery junk in there. And then OP, just bravely enough, has always stood up to them and come out on top. Way to go, OP. What better way to say FHOA than to dissolve it entirely, right? Posted by Drop Bear Airstrike. So, a handful of years back, a family friend used to live in an HOA. One month, the board sent a notice around that they had voted, without any resident input, to update the aesthetics of the neighborhood and required all street-facing walls to be repainted one of the 3 colors that they had chosen. Naturally, the residents were incensed that their dues would be used for what amounted to a demonstration of power and a vanity project. The HOA claimed the move fell under their authority to preserve the upkeep and maintenance of the neighborhood. However, while actually reading the bylaws to see if the board had the authority to enforce such renovations, one of her neighbors noticed that the HOA could be dissolved if the motion was brought, seconded, and approved by some fraction, let's go with 2/3, majority vote of all the residents. Fast forward to next month. Virtually all of the residents attended, which made the board uneasy because meetings were typically only attended by a handful of people who had specific items of interest that they wanted to be present for. The whole crowd sat quietly through the agenda, and when it came time to open the floor for new motions, her neighbor brought the handbook to the podium and said, I'm paraphrasing here, I motion to dissolve the HOA under Section X, subsection Y, paragraph Z. Family friend says, I second that motion. Neighbor goes, all in favor? The whole room, unanimously, aye. At this point, the board was spluttering, trying to figure out what had just happened as, job done, some of the residents had already started filling out. Apparently, it took a bit of time for neighbor to explain to the secretary the nature of the motion and the fact that the residents far surpassed the quorum and majority necessary for a legitimate vote. The secretary reviewed the handbook and told the chairperson that it was all according to the letter of the bylaws. The chairperson tried to bluster and tell the room that they had to come to order so they could discuss the matter further. Apparently, the neighbor told him something along the lines of, "Come to order to discuss what? The HOA meeting is over because there is no more HOA. We just dissolved it." I asked family friend if this was it. She said the chairperson ended up sending a letter around telling them that, "I recognize you're all very upset, but let's not make rash decisions," and that they could discuss making some changes to the renovation plans. But it was right there on the record. The HOA had been legitimately dissolved, so no one showed up or responded, and eventually the board gave up trying to regain power. What we have just witnessed in these few minutes is literal malicious compliance, nuclear revenge, FHOA insanity, because all of these things factor in. They go look up the rules, they know the rules, and so do I, and they know that they can take down the HOA for being just shady and trying to take money and do their own little thing with it, right? You know what? The people stood up. They said, "We're not going to take this HOA anymore. We're not going to take it. No, we ain't going to take it." And they shut them down forever. Way to go, OP and everybody. Did you catch those two musical references, by the way? Let me know if you did. Neighbor kept reporting me to the HOA for petty things. Opportunity knocked to pay her back, and I took it. Posted by Aramaris Macon. I found out today that my revenge was complete, so I came here to share it. My neighbor, who we shall call Christy, would report us to our HOA for literally everything that she didn't like. Trash can still on the street at 5 p.m. on trash day? Reported. Kids bike outside while kids are still playing? Reported. Didn't mow the lawn this weekend? Typically I do this on Monday nights. Reported Monday morning. Dog barking at 2 in the afternoon as she and her dog walk on the path behind our house? Reported. In many cases, these were not issues covered by the HOA, but due to repeated reporting, the board did fine us, and I had to go spend the evening waiting through a 2-hour meeting to have them removed. This kept happening and was driving me nuts. Both my wife and I spoke to her and tried to find out why she felt this was okay, and she told us, "You need to just do a better job at being a good neighbor." Fast forward to early this summer. She posts on a neighborhood website sharing a video about the anti-vax movement. In general, the replies are pretty aggressive about telling her she's full of it, but she keeps pushing back, leading to a super long post about how we are all wrong and we should listen because she is a doctor. She signs it, Dr. Christie last name, naturopathic physician. At this point, I'm mostly just wondering what the heck any kind of doctor would be against vaccines. This made no sense to me, so I started digging. I did find that Christie was listed as a doctor on sites where you could find physicians. I dug into more of what exactly a naturopathic physician was and found out that in my state of Colorado, they are regulated and required to maintain a license to practice. I checked into it and found out the following. Firstly, Christie was not in the state database as a naturopathic physician, and 2, the board who regulates it has an online reporting tool. At this point, I took all the information I had, grabbed screenshots, and checked my timeline and reported her as claiming to be a naturopathic physician when she was not. I then followed that up with this post on the neighborhood website. I said, "This is a hot button topic for me, and because of that and Christie signing her post as Dr. Last Name, I had to dig some. I, for one, am a huge fan of including whole person treatment. I think doctors of osteopathic medicine are wonderful as they work to integrate whole health into the picture with well-researched medical best practices. Naturopathy less so, which is the problem here. One researched article here breaks down a lot of the issues quite well. It is almost 13 years old, but still quite good at explaining the valid concerns. I further checked as Colorado does regulate naturopathy, and I could not find any Christie last name listed there. My thought was that it is entirely possible that she holds a license to practice in Colorado and my search wasn't working, But even just searching her first name or zip code or my town or the town near us provides no results for a Christy last name. There are 2 naturopathic doctors in town near us, and I used this search. At this point, Christy locked the post and later deleted the entire thing. I was pretty dang happy that she removed the post, but today it got better. In the mail, I received a copy of the cease and desist letter that Christy received from the state about a month ago. It told her that she must cease and desist her practice immediately. Okay, look, I know this is a pro-revenge HOA story, but this is beyond nuclear, and here is why. It's so funnily ironic. You have someone that reports people for not even HOA-related stuff. It's little minor stupid things that she's doing just to be petty, right? Petty revenge style, when there is no revenge to OP. And then OP is like, all right, we're going to go get back at them. So they look, and the doctor that this person claims to be is not actually an office that they hold. They do not have the licensing, the registration, the proper approval from the state that requires it to practice this doctor title. So they go in and literally get a letter from the government saying they have to cease and desist the practice. That is huge to rip that out from under Christy's feet because she just would not stop doing that. And someone in the comments had mentioned that the HOA might not allow this practice anyway, so the very thing that she is using for her power to try to take down OP was being used against her to destroy and ruin her being. OP? Holy freaking crap, man. That's brutal. Click my next crazy HOA Karen compilation on your screen to continue your listening session. Thanks for checking this one out, and see you in the next one.